Welcome to CarDekho, where we help you pick the right car right now. And right now we are back with part 2 of the long-term review of the Swift Diesel AMT. Well, we've driven this car for about 10,000 kilometers and so far it has given us a relatively smooth and fuss-free experience. Except for one small issue. What is that? I'll tell you that later in this video. But first, if you haven't seen part 1 of the long-term review, which we had done after the Swift had completed 3,000 kilometers, you can watch that by hitting the link right up there. We also have a more detailed review of the Swift where we've covered aspects like the performance, ride and handling and a lot of other things. And you can check that out by hitting the link in the description below. For now, in this video, we're going to talk about the Swift's interior for the most part. The little things that add to your comfort or to your hassle over the long run. So let's get down to it by answering a few questions. Before we proceed, do click on the subscribe button and the bell icon to stay up to date with all our latest videos. Now this Swift AMT has been with us for almost 6 months now, and this is the car that I drive to office daily. That's about 40 kilometers up and down. And if like me you have to drive 40 kilometers or more in the city, then you have my sympathies. But jokes aside, this diesel AMT has made my commutes a lot easier in traffic. Now I admit that this is not the smoothest automatics. You do have to deal with a bit of head nods and those jerks, which is so typical of AMTs every time the gears shift. But you also realize that over a period of time, you do get used to this. Why I'm saying this is that because after using this vehicle for a considerable period of time, you will learn exactly how to work this gearbox. You will know that you don't really necessarily need to slam hard to overtake another vehicle. You just need to keep a light foot on the throttle and that should keep those jerks away most of the time. Plus, you also get a useful creep function which is handy in bumper-to-bumper traffic, and there is also a manual mode if you want better control over your gear shifts. Now I could keep talking about the Swift's driving characteristics, but like I said before, in this video I'm going to stick to talking about the in-cabin feel and experience. But what I'm really trying to get to is that if you're planning on buying the Swift Diesel Automatic and haven't been able to wrap your head around the AMT, you can set aside those concerns knowing fully well that you haven't made a wrong choice. And now to answer the initial question, we've driven the Swift for over 10,000 kilometers, which means it's overdue for its third service, and we'll be getting that done right after the shoot is over. So we've done 2 services so far, the first one at 1,000 kilometers and the second one at 5,000 kilometers. And since the first 2 services have been free, we haven't really incurred any expenses so far. The Swift's third service at 10,000 kilometers is also free, and you can rest easy until it completes 20,000 kilometers or 2 years before the first paid service begins. Now the onboard mileage indicator shows 21 kilometers per litre, but that tends to go up and down depending on traffic conditions and your driving style. The highest that we've got so far is about 24 kilometers per litre and the lowest is around 16 kilometers per litre. Once again, the key is to keep an easy driving style and not go too hard on the accelerator. Our usage has been a mix of both highway and city, and with the AC on at most times. Speaking of the AC, it's quite effective. We have no complaints so far. It manages to cool the cabin quite well, and despite the lack of rear AC vents, we haven't had rear passengers complain. In terms of mechanicals, none. The car is running smoothly. There are no rattles or vibrations from anywhere. Yes, there is one noise that does seep into the cabin, and that is of the loud diesel engine. But you know what? You get used to it eventually. And if you don't, there is one simple solution. Just turn up the volume. Now, remember that problem that I was referring to earlier? That's this. As you can see, I've had to switch to a spare wheel after the original tire suffered a sidewall damage and a bent rim, possibly after it went over a huge pothole. Now this is a smaller 14-inch space saver as opposed to a 15-inch wheels that you get as standard, which means it's not as durable enough as your regular tires. If you ever have to use a space saver, we would recommend that you use it only for a limited distance, maybe until the time you reach the next puncture repair shop. And you see the sticker here? This means that you should not use the space saver at speeds above 80 kilometers per hour. Doing so could be dangerous. Now the driver's seat gets height adjustment, which is great, but the steering is only rake adjustable and does not have telescopic function, which is okay for somebody of my height. But if you're someone who's taller, then the telescopic steering would have let you stretch your legs even further. The front seats are also quite comfortable over long journeys, and you see these side bolsterings, they keep you locked in place, especially when you're pulling through corners. If there's anything that we really miss, that would be a center armrest. That could have really enhanced the driver comfort. Another feature which turned out to be a boon during the monsoon is the rear washer wiper and the rear defogger. They did their job of clearing up the rearward visibility quite well. But then again, they're available only in the Z Plus and the Z variant. There are some minor things about a car that you discover only once you've driven it over a longer period. For instance, the audio quality of this Swift's Bluetooth telephony system is quite alright, but what's really impressive is how the mic manages to catch sounds even when you're sitting in the back seat. Well, let me give you a demo. Hello अम्मा.
हाँ बोलो.
आपको सुनाई दे रहा है?
हाँ सुनाई दे रहा है अच्छा सा.
अच्छे से आवाज आ रही है आपको?
हाँ बिल्कुल.
अच्छा चलो, मेरे को यही सुनना था आपसे. मैं ना आपसे बाद में बात करता हूँ, ठीक है?
हाँ.
Need I say more? It's got to be the interiors. You know, the black and grey cabin of the Swift is a dull place to be in. And while black is considered an easier to maintain color than beige, when it collects dust, it shows. And during the rainy season, your car's interior inevitably ends up looking something like this. Keep a pair of shower caps inside the car, which you can wear over your shoes to prevent the carpets from soiling. Now the Z variant gets keyless entry, but this key fob looks too damn ordinary. Also, to unlock all the doors, you need to press either this button or the button over here twice. Doing it once will open only the driver's side door. Thankfully, there is a workaround to this by changing the default setting in the MID. Let me show you how. To change the door unlock settings, long press the stalk on the right-hand side of the instrument cluster. Toggle between the various functions by turning the stalk right to select the one that says Door. You can now choose the desired setting by pressing and turning the stalk. For example, to unlock all doors with just a single press of the button on the door, select D1 and then turn the stalk right to choose SL1. The default setting is SL2. Once you've made your selection, just press the stalk once and a message on the MID screen will tell you if the setting has been changed successfully. Here's how you can change the other door settings. Now the music output from this system is quite decent, but you know this old school single line display? That looks boring, and frankly navigating through those various functions can be quite a task. In fact, it took me several moments before I could pair my phone to this system. But that's probably because we are so used to the large displays of the fancy touchscreen infotainment systems in the top-end vehicles that we see these days. The good news is that the Swift AMT is now available in the top-end Z Plus variant, which gets that infotainment system. But for that, you will have to pay rupees 80,000 more. Now this may be a small issue, but the power window buttons are not backlit except for the one for the driver's side. Because of this, I often find myself groping and pressing the button for the wrong window, especially in the dark. There are times when I try to shut the door from the outside and it just doesn't shut in one go. Somehow the mechanism lacks that reassuring quality that we usually see in German hatchbacks. We tried seating 3 people in the rear seat of the Swift and the result was so as you can see, the Swift's rear seat is ideal for 2 passengers, especially for longer drives. You can squeeze in the 3rd passenger provided they're not as hefty as the guys you just saw. Since there is no rear armrest, the middle passenger will also sit in a relatively comfortable position. Now, some of you may have concerns regarding the Swift's ground clearance, which stands at 163 mm. While we haven't had too many instances driving the Swift with a full house, the few occasions that we did, the Swift managed to drive over big bumps without bottoming out. Overall, the Swift Diesel AMT has made our commutes a lot easier, and barring some minor bugbears, the experience has been largely satisfactory. By the way, Maruti also recommends getting a tire rotation done after the first 10,000 kilometers, so we'll be doing that as well once we've changed this tire. If you found this video helpful, do give us a like, and if you have any specific questions, do post them in the comments below and I'll address them in the next video. Well, that's it from my end for now. Thank you so much for watching.